Welcome, everybody, to Bigger Than Football podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, and I've just told him that this is the first episode. He is very excited to pave the way for other people. Today we have John Thomas Nakundi from Right to Dream Academy, all the way in Ghana. He is a friend of ours. He is a person who I like to call my personal friend, and he's the strength and conditioning coach there, which is very commendable because that is one of the, I would say, one of the most prestigious academies within Africa, if I may say so myself. And yeah, we just like to welcome you, and thank you for being with us.
Ah, Thank you very much, Kim. It's a pleasure. I was really excited when I heard about the podcast. And I think it'll be kind of fun to share my story, my experiences along the way, everything so far. So thank you for having me on the podcast.
Of course, no problem. I'm going to, I'm going to remove all the formalities and all the. I'm going to talk to you like I usually talk. I just call you.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us more about Right to Dream Academy and why people say, why it has the reputation that it does.
Well, to be honest, I first heard about the academy through a Instagram post. So there's an account I'd started following because they had like interesting football-related posts. Then a few days after I started following them is when they posted about the job opportunity here. So once I started looking, so that's how I first heard of Right to Dream. I started looking into the opportunity. Then I started looking at the academy in general. I think they've been around. It was first started in 1999 by a guy called Tom Vernon. He'd come to Ghana to coach football. But at that time, I think he was really young, must have been maybe 19, 20 years old. And it started off very, very basic. Dusty field, his house. I think they were paying for they were paying for it they were paying for the operations by bringing over foreign coaches to do like some volunteer work, stuff like that. So it moved to a different area in Ghana. I'm not sure about the name. Then came here towards the end of the early 2000s. So I think about maybe 09, maybe 2010. And here it's a place called Olakrade, about 2 hours from Accra by road. It's pretty nice, pretty remote, pretty quiet. And here, because of the space, they've really managed to put down like a proper football campus. So we have 8 grass fields. We have a gym. We have dorms for the boys and the girls. We have a school, classes and dining hall and everything. So it's a really nice environment to spend a couple of years developing as a football player.
It's basically a full-scale football academy where you combine school, it's residential, all the people are staying on campus, all the players are staying on campus, that kind of thing.
Exactly. We have like so the school structure, let me say, it's divided into two bits: the football department and the school, the education department. Football department, we have how many? So a technical director, coaches for the 5 squads. That's under 11s, boys under 11s, under 13s, under 15s. under 18s, and the girls squad. So we have 5 squads in total. Coaches for each, rather one coach for each, goalkeeping coach. We have a medical department made up of 3 people. So 2 physios and me as the strength and conditioning coach. Then we have 2 admin guys for the football department and an analysis department made up of 3 people.
So it seems like a very big operation. Is it? Why would you say that it has the reputation that it does in comparison to maybe other places you have experienced in the continent?
Well, the first thing I'd say is just the structure that's in place. I haven't been to any other place with all these resources for players. So, I think that ability for players to train where they live, basically. Outside school and training hours, the kids can go to the analysis departments, watch every game they've ever played for the academy, all their touches, analyze those. They can come to the gym, work out if they need to. In case of any injuries, they can come do their rehab. The fields are there. So if you want to work on your whatever, free kicks, dribbling, whatever you feel like, the balls in the store, the field is right there for you. You're ready to go. So I think that's the first thing. It really helps players develop. It's that thing about like focus practice. If you're able to, one, have the time and space just to be able to focus on your craft, it accelerates how much you develop. The other thing is the coaching here is really good. I think, the scouting department does work hard to bring in a lot of very good players from around the region. But more than that, the coaching is really good. I think so far in my career, this is the best team of coaches I've ever worked with. Like back home, I worked in the Premier League a bit. I've been coaching myself for the last couple of years. This is by far the best team of coaches I've ever had the pleasure of working with. So that really does also play a big part in the end product. That thing is just different from most academies, maybe in Europe or maybe the US. Here, once a kid gets in, they're guaranteed to be in the academy, I think, until they either leave to go to school or leave to get a professional contract. So,
So they keep them there for let's say, get in at 11 years old. You're staying there until you're 18, 19.
Until you, it's guaranteed.
Wow.
Unless you do something dumb and get kicked out.
Yeah.
But it's not that they'll find a better player 2-3 years down the line than replace you with them.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I have many questions about that. All these, about the academy and how everything works. How the players are scouted. But I want to talk about your journey and you on a personal level. I was thinking maybe you could give us, if we could go back in time to where John Thomas first, where did he come from? If you can take us back to the beginning, how did you even develop this interest in strength and conditioning? Because there'll be different kinds of people that watch this, and some of them are thinking, okay, I'm a player, I want to get I want to either get into an academy like that, or I want to know what makes those academies different. Or they're the people who are thinking, they're professionals in the sports here in Kenya, and they're thinking, how do I get where JT was? Where did JT come from? What did he study? What did those kinds of things? And that's what I want to get to.
Oh, okay. Ooh. I guess if I start from the beginning, I was born in. No, I'm joking. I've just always been a sports guy. Like my earliest memories were of watching. I think there used to be a show that used to come on KTN in the early 2000s. This show NBA games. Then I really remember the 2002 World Cup. Ronaldo with the hairstyle.
Yes.
Yeah. So those experiences convinced me that, you know what, I'm gonna be either playing for Real Madrid or playing for the Los Angeles Lakers. One of those. Yeah. So I think from an early age, I was just really into sport. I remember we used to play in the estate with my friends, and I wasn't that good. So when I was maybe 7, 8 years old, I used to wake up at 6 a.m., go to the field, set stuff up. Remember the comic Super Strikers?
Yes, I remember, of course. And Shakes. And
Shakes. Yeah. So I remember there's an edition where he'd set up like a thing with tanks and whatnot to work on his shooting and stuff. So I try to replicate that, dribble through cones, shoot into like a metal tank and everything. Yeah. As I got older, my soccer skills never really picked up. So I found myself gravitating more towards basketball and rugby. But I still played football. So all through school, I played all three sports.
Which somebody who was I would like multi-talented. You dabbled in many different sports activities, not just football.
Yeah. Not just football. Yeah. So I think my 4 years in high school, I played all three sports. Then especially when I was about 10, 11, we had a rugby team in the estate, and that sparked my love for the game. We'd train every single day. I'd rush home from school, finish my homework, get to the field for training. I know these guys were 4 or 5 years older than me, so when I look back at it, it helped me develop really fast. But at the time, my mind started thinking about, okay, how am I going to bridge this gap? Like, I can't be playing with these guys. All of them are faster, stronger, bigger than me.
Yeah.
I need to figure out a way to, even the scales. So even from a young age, like I'd already started thinking about, okay, how can I get stronger, faster, bigger? How can I get better at doing certain things, like cutting or, on the rugby field? Just because it's what happens when you're the youngest person on the team by a number of years. So when we got into high school,
this whole time, was it you wanting to be a professional rugby player? What was going through your mind in terms of what you saw in the future? Was it like, I want to be a professional rugby player? Was it just like, let me explore this thing that I enjoy? Was it like, I'll either play basketball or play football? Was it, I want to play rugby?
Well, at the time, I think that was maybe around 12, 13. It was just fun. Like, that was the best part of my day, being out on the field with my friends. And there was a lot of banter.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more of, okay, I can't be the guy everyone keeps on making fun of. At the end of the day, I need
You
to
wanted to
find a
prove
solution
people
to
wrong.
this. Exactly, yeah. So
Yeah.
at that time, it was fun. Later on, as I was getting closer to finishing school, I started taking rugby a lot more serious. And
Mm.
I had a vision in my head. So I'd finish high school, maybe play for a club for a year, then get onto the national under 20s team. Then
Mm-hmm.
maybe a year or two after that, start to look into the national team. So
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, by the time I was 22, 23, I was supposed to be on tour with the Kenya Sevens, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So later on, I started considering it, but like I said, all through this time, I've been playing basketball, I've been playing football, and when it came time to choose what I wanted to study in university, my sister, she was also in campus at the time. She was about to finish campus as I was finishing high school, and she told me about these guys she usually sees on campus, like their classes are in the field and they get to play all these games and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So like that sounds like the type of time I want to have at campus. Sign me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I discovered sports science. Before that, I remember my high school football coach was also my rugby coach. He'd shown us a program that the South African Rugby Union put out for rugby players in general. It's like guidelines for how to get bigger, faster, stronger. They have a whole program that they give players, um, strength programs, nutrition programs. It was called Box Smart. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I tried doing that for, I think, my last 2 years in high school. And like it really intrigued me, like all these exercises, sets, reps, how do they come up with all these sorts of things? So when I heard about sports science, I was like, oh, cool. I think this sounds like fun. And I mean, I wouldn't mind spending a whole day on the field instead of in the classroom. If that's my university experience, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't really turn out to be the whole day in the field. I mean, we had days in the field, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was 4 years of really learning about the human body, learning about training, learning about uh, things like coaching science and biomechanics, anatomy, physiology, history of training, all the technical stuff that goes into basically training the human body, getting ready for performance. But it wasn't as, I mean, because the course was still pretty new to the university, it wasn't maybe as directed to modern performance as it could have been. What helped me was that, yeah, so my first year in university, my old basketball coach from high school invited me back to start coaching at where I went to high school. And so I did that for a year. Then the year after that, he asked me to take on one of the football teams as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I started coaching basketball and football at my old high school while I was in university. And I think that real life experience, like, okay, yeah,
the practical side. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it really took my thinking to a different level. What I was getting in school was good, but it wasn't enough because when you're in the heat of a season, you're losing games. You need to plan practices. Like, you need to figure out how to solve those problems. Yeah, and I'm just someone who's very, very competitive. I don't like losing, whether it's high school basketball or whatever. So it forced me to start just reading a lot more than what was necessary for university. I think to a point where I used to have arguments with some of my lecturers, telling them that, I think this could be done better, or this doesn't make sense. Tip, don't do that to your university lecturers. They don't take too well. Yeah, they don't take too well to that. Yeah, but I think doing that at that time was the experience I needed to kind of force me to open my mind a bit more. I discovered that there's a lot more to what we see on the TV watching football on a Saturday afternoon. I always see that these guys come out and play, and us guys we'll say whatever we want, but there's a lot more that goes into that performance that we watch on the screen. There's physical development. If one of these guys maybe had a meal that was bad 2 or 3 hours before that, it's going to affect how they're going to play. There's a mental side of sport. If guys, everything at home is not too good, it's going to affect how they play. There's, of course, what we look at a lot more, the technical and tactical stuff. That also plays a part, but at that time in my career, I didn't understand how much these other things counted. So at that time, when I just started coaching, I was big on tactical development. A training session of mine would be warm up, a couple of drills for maybe 15, 20 minutes, then an hour of just shape, running through our shape, possession, out of possession. Same thing on the basketball court. We'd have 1 or 2, maybe 15, 20 minutes of drills, then just an hour of tactical stuff, running through plays, running through defense, running through offense. Everything would be very patterned for me. And I think at the beginning of my career, it was working because I guess at that level, not too many teams are focused on that kind of stuff. And a well-drilled team will always come out on top in that situation. As I got...
the amount of competition also dictates the level at which people pay attention to things that look like they don't matter. So if the level of competition is very high, you won't only look at the technical or the tactical side. You look at the mental side and the physical side, even the social side of the game. Now that you have all this knowledge, if you were to give a percentage to each of let's say if we take the technical and we take the tactical and then we take the mental side and the physical side, of those, what percentage would you give to each of those?
I think that's something I'm still trying to figure out. Over the years, I think I've moved across sort of a continuum
of coaching, but in terms of what will make the player at the end of the day. What's most important for that player to develop? Do you think?
If I had to pick one thing, I'd say it would be the mentor.
Okay. Why?
It's sort of what I've seen over the last couple of years. When I started out, I thought, look, as long as you're tactically solid, your game plan is solid, you're going to come out on top. But I mean, we see it every day on TV. There's no one, for example, in the Premier League that goes into a game not being tactically solid, but they still lose games. Then I used to think, okay, maybe you need to be the biggest, strongest, fastest guy on the field. And this I learned from rugby especially, which you'd think if you're the biggest, fastest, strongest guy, you'd come out on top. But I don't know whether you follow rugby. The World Cup before this last one, Japan pulled a shocker beating South Africa. Because, I mean, they weren't bigger, they weren't stronger, but they played with more heart, they played a quicker game. So that showed me that, okay, maybe physical qualities are not the best. I mean, look at someone like Busquets. That man has no speed. I don't think
True.
But he's still, in my opinion, the best central midfielder football.
Yeah. And so then, in the set that you're in at the moment at Right to Dream, how do they place emphasis on that mental side of the game, considering that you feel it is the most important?
Okay, so mentally I'd break it down maybe into two things. There's your mindset, but also how you think about the game. That part about how players approach the game is done really, really well here. There's a structure, a system of a style of play straight down from the club in Denmark all the way till the under 11s here. There's a style of play that's in place that helps guys develop how to see the game. Because, you're here 5, 6, 7 years, this is the pass at this time, this is the pass at this time, this is the pass at this time, this is the guy who will be open in this scenario, etc., etc., etc.
There's a solid kind of curriculum or style of play that all teams adopt, starting from the team in Denmark all the way to under 11s in Ghana.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that helps with...
That's like one part, one side of the... That's one side of the mental part.
Yeah, so the other part... I think the culture of the organization sort of helps to bring that out. You need a certain mental toughness to make it in professional sport, because it takes a lot out of you, and it's very easy to break down. It's very easy to just let it go, to stop trying, because it's tough. You can imagine, as a player, you're putting your heart out there for people to judge.
Yeah.
Through your performance, and that's a tough thing to do. It's like telling a girl you like her. It's hard.
It is. In fact, I would compare it to, I mean, every especially when you play at a very high level, it's almost as if your life depends on your performance. Because I mean,
Mhm.
for some of these kids, especially in the academy that you're in at the moment, or even our academy, football is seen as something that they really want to pursue. A bad performance, puts them down. At the same time, there's so many factors that they're thinking about. It's like going to war
Exactly.
every weekend, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can't handle that, if you don't have the mental fortitude to, wake up, eat right, go do your 10 minutes of pre-act before training, every single training session for the whole year, do your gym session with the right intensity, do your warm-up the right way,
Mm-hmm.
on the field, cover the distances you're supposed to cover, sprint to get back, like all that it's tough, and your body doesn't like doing tough things.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of mental fortitude to do those sorts of things, and that's what leads up to what we watch on the Saturday. What we see
Yeah.
on the Saturday is, I mean, it's not easy, but it's the easy part. That's where the players really get to enjoy the mental discipline it takes to get through the week before that. I think
That's the challenge.
to me that's what makes the difference between someone who would make it and someone who would just be a good football player.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's people who are watching this and they're thinking, let's say it's a player or a young player. They're
Mm-hmm.
thinking, okay, I've established that the mental side of the game is most important for me if I'm looking to play at the highest level. But how do they develop that within themselves? That's a question I would
Well,
pose to you.
I think the first thing would be learn the game. I think I've been here, what, very much. I've been here maybe 9 months, and from day one till today, like I'm still learning new things about football,
Mm-hmm.
about how basically how to coach, how the game is played, how to approach setting things like setting a team up, or what players are supposed to be looking for on the field, various positions, things like that. So that's the first thing. Like learn your position, learn the game. Because these days there's a lot of resources available. I see 20, 30 videos on YouTube after every game about just analyzing the tactical plans of the different coaches. I see tons of videos on YouTube showing different players, how they turn, how they pass the ball, what they're looking at, how they scan, how they get into space, how they lose markers. So there is that. You always need to be thinking. You always need to be thinking. I usually say at the end of the game, for some players, you're not tired because you covered a lot of distance. You're tired because you did a lot of mental acrobatics. Because you're always trying to figure out what the problem is. That's the first thing I'd say for young players, especially African players, because our coaching structures are not as developed as, say, in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of players from the continent are lacking tactically, lacking in the way they see the game, lacking in the way they understand space. The second thing is just to build mental toughness. And the best way I can think of that is, there's a quote I had: you build mental toughness by doing the things you say you will. So by learning to trust yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you say, I don't know, my alarm is gonna ring at 5 because I need to wake up. When it rings at 5, wake up. Don't snooze for 5 or 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I mean, it might seem like a small thing to do, but you're starting to build that momentum that when I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Yeah. And the habits they add up.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you learn to trust yourself. You learn to build that confidence that no matter how hard something is, I can get through it. Which now rolls into my second point on that. You just do hard things, do things that are difficult. There's no secret to it. If you can go up, if you can walk somewhere instead of maybe grabbing a matatu or an Uber, if you can carry something by yourself, if you can, just do difficult things, shower with cold water.
Challenge yourself, essentially.
Challenge yourself, yeah. Because it builds that self-confidence.
Yeah. I think one thing that have a challenge, or I'd say students or young players have a challenge with here, and also in other places in Africa, is they lack the context or the exposure to know exactly what they should be doing. Because if I'm in Right to Dream in the academy and everybody else is waking up at 5 a.m., I will wake up at 5 a.m. If they're going 15 minutes early to practice, to do the pre-activation work that they're supposed to do, or if they have strength sessions and they're all going, then that's to will yourself in that kind of situation is not that difficult. But I think the challenge for many of these players is they don't have the exposure to know. They see Cristiano Ronaldo, they see Messi, and they think that it's just there, but they don't see what happens on the training ground, or they don't see what happens in preseason, and it's very difficult to show them that if you don't take them out of this environment, and that's a challenge.
I think that's true. From a personal point of view, I don't think I really ever got what it takes to be a professional athlete till last year. I think last year I started working with Oluni, and we were working with a team in the Premier League in Nairobi, or rather at that time it was Division 2.
Yeah.
And like it's crazy. we see players on TV on Saturday, maybe follow them on Instagram, see all the nicely curated images they want to show us. But behind the scenes, being a professional athlete is hard. You need to be ready for early mornings. I remember the days like last year, I'd get to the training field at 5:30 a.m. to set up. I'm leaving the house 4:35 a.m. On a Sunday morning because we have a session at 6 a.m. Exactly. Yeah, you see, I remember days when I'd go a whole week without seeing my friends, 2, 3, 4 weeks without seeing my friends, because you're just always going, you're always going. When I came here, like that perspective changed even more. A lot of these guys, especially with like the seniors, because they're between here and Denmark, and these guys in January will be in Denmark from January till April. Come back, have a 2-week camp, maybe go home for 2 weeks, come back to the academy May. go away in June so they'll be in Denmark, maybe training, and at that time, because it's the summer, I think summer, yeah, they'll be in Denmark touring Europe till sometime around September. Come back to the academy, train, have a tournament the week before Christmas, get back home on the 23rd, come back here around the 4th of January. For a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, like that's tough. And you're not yet a proper, full professional. So you can imagine these guys playing over Christmas. You miss anniversaries, you miss birthdays, you miss your friends hanging out, you miss your family. Hell, sometimes you may even miss, I don't know, funerals, people in hospital. It's tough, and it's a grind, and it's not something to envy. You know, and if you're not ready for that mentally, if you're not ready for being in a new place, eating food you've never heard of. Remember, I came here and struggled with the food for first maybe 2-3 months. Because it's not what I'm used to.
What were you eating?
Just these guys, I think West African food has a lot of heat. And I don't do heat at all.
But
you know,
how you do? Yeah, you've adjusted. Have you adjusted?
Yeah,
you take heat.
It's coming along. It's getting better. I mean, you can imagine if I was a player and I'm not eating well. What does that mean? Yeah,
exactly.
So there's a lot more than we see. There's, for instance, a briefing before a game. You know, you have to remember all the scouting reports. You have to remember your particular game plan. There's adjustments that'll be made on the fly. Whole load of information that you have to keep in mind. That's not easy.
It isn't. I think many players get used to seeing the fun side. You know, they see the happy side, but they're not aware of the sacrifice, you know, and all the things that go into actually, which actually I think in any profession, anything that is skill based, there is the 10% of you know the real happiness, but then there's the 90% which is just drudgerous and boring, and if you're not there for the right reasons, you probably quit. How do you guys scout for? How do you scout for these players? I mean, there's kids who may watch this and they're thinking, okay, how does one get into an academy like that?
Well, I think I don't get too involved too much with that side of things, but basically, for Right to Dream, majority of the scouting is done around West Africa. So the scouts, we have a scouting department made up of 2 guys, and basically they just go around the region, tournaments, matches. We set up our own like recruitment events for players to come and get seen. And then here it's a bit unique in that they don't just look at footballing ability. There's 3 things that they look at. So I mean, you do need to be a decent enough player, but your academics need to be good to some extent, and character. So I think I had a story like I don't know how true it is, but like one of the scouts, they were looking at a player. So just as they come out from the player's house, this guy goes across to a small shop So he was buying a soda or something. Then he asked the shopkeeper, like, what do you think of this guy? Like, yeah, he's okay, not a bad kid, not a bad kid. And I was like, oh, wow. Something like that could easily go the other way. You might look like an angel, but your family might present you to look like an angel. But now when we ask around the people around, people know that kid is a crook. So all those
Characters.
things, yeah, character is important. Then from that, a bunch of players will be brought on for trials. So those could last anywhere from a week to a whole month. And basically, you're brought into the academy, you go for classes, you train just like the normal students. But you're being evaluated. Yeah, so at the end of that period, there's input from the education department, the character department, and the coaches about whether a certain player would be a good fit, first of all, in the academy with his age group, his or her age group, and then whether there's a need for a player maybe in that position, things like that. So it's a lot more holistic than a lot of people realize.
Yeah. So you have to pass the trial, but not only just in terms of your footballing ability, but your character and also your education. And then even if you get through that, you must go to the academy and then be put on, like a probationary period.
Yeah, like
for
a trial
some time.
period.
Yeah, and then they cover your. That is an extensive process. Especially, I can understand why that is done, considering that they keep players within the academy, and there's no, they don't transfer them. You said they stay for some time.
Yeah.
I'm curious to ask of those that are in the academy, how many let's say go directly professionally, to play professional.
Okay, it's a bit more complicated than that. So here there's two pathways. There's the professional pathway and the academic pathway. Because a big chunk of the kids that come in don't really look to go play pro. So when they think about 15, 16, the kids on the educational pathway get to go to schools in the US and the UK for high school. Yeah, so
they continue playing where they are, or they stop playing?
Yeah, exactly. So they get football scholarships, and it's like really nice schools, Taft and etc. Really, really nice schools. So they go there, play football, finish high school, get into college now through football scholarships. And there's been guys, like just the big universities, Stanford, Michigan, big universities there on football scholarships. Then
soccer, what they call it there.
Soccer.
I spent a bit of time there. Just a little bit of time.
Yeah. Then the kids on the professional pathway, it gets a bit different. So once in the senior, at least from how I've seen it working, once in the senior squad, the under 18s here, they tour a lot. And they spend a lot of time in Europe as well. So I think maybe half the year you're in Denmark. The club is called FC Nordsjælland. And so when they're there, they get to train with the under 19 team there. They get to play tournaments. They get to travel around Europe. So they're playing basically the best teams their age. All the big clubs, your Ajaxes, your Dortmund, your Real Madrid, your Manchester United and Chelsea, and all those tournaments across the continent. So if you're in the seniors, maybe from the time you're 16, 17, 18, or 3 years, you're playing really high level football. Then when you turn 18 here, you graduate. And now because the club is there, there's that pathway. So from here, you go into the under-19s in Denmark, then the first team. Then from there, you're a professional. Up to you how
what percentage
your career.
Say, would you know, is there a certain number per year that are expected to let's say actually sign a professional contract, or because that's what people are thinking that are listening to this. They're thinking, okay, let me know the odds.
Wow. I can't say. Well, first, I've only been here about 8-9 months, and second, like every year here is different. So some years might have a lot more guys on the elite pathway than others. Some years might have a lot more guys on the education pathway than others. So it's really dependent. But even then, not everyone on the elite pathway. Because at the end of the day, the business of football is about what does the club need right now.
Yeah, it's a business. It becomes a business.
Becomes a business at that level. And you might be the best central midfielder in the group, like at your age, but the club already has a really good, young, experienced central midfielder. So you're going to have a tougher time than maybe a centre back who's kind of average, but the club really, really needs a centre back. You know, so at that point, those sorts of things come into play. So it depends. It depends on the year. It depends on what's going on. I know for right now, I think some guys graduated in December last year. Four guys. Two of them one of them is like a spectacular player. So he got pulled into the first team straight in Denmark from here. Two of them excellent players, but they still need to mature, so they got pulled into the under-19s. And there's another one who they didn't really need his position at the club. So I think he managed to get maybe a trial at a club in Denmark. Because at the end of the day, you have been playing at a really high level for 3 or so years, and at least here, the way the setup is here, and people in Europe have seen you, you've won tournaments, there's a lot of footage. There's footage, maybe 4 or 5 years worth of footage of you playing.
Yeah.
So it becomes easier to market someone in a situation like this compared to a player who's never really
played
an amateur player.
Tournament.
Exactly.
Yeah, because even in our experience at our academy, we get guys who are saying, maybe they send an email, they send a message, they're asking, they've played a few, let's say a few times, or maybe just a year or so, and they think that now it's, they've worked hard enough to go and play for football. I think it'd be very eye-opening for them to know that there are people within their own continent who are playing, more consistently than them, who are playing at a higher level than them.
At a higher level than them, yeah.
Support get even where you are, they still may not, make it, at least at the professional level. Yeah, but I think you've stated something really important, which is that professional football is not the be all and end all of life.
Exactly. I mean, for instance, there's a kid who was here. He got a scholarship to go to. So he went through the education pathway, finished high school in the States, got a scholarship to Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one of the best universities in the world.
It is, yeah.
And while he's there, he's still playing football. When he graduates, he could declare for the draft in the MLS, or, figure out another way to maybe get to play European football or whatever. But I usually look at it this way: if football at the very least can get you an education worth, $300,000, that football has done a lot more for you than what is done for majority of the people who've played football on this on this world.
Your life. It's changed your life.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that would even put in the. I mean, if you can think of all the footballers that play football in Africa, and think of how many actually get a scholarship opportunity, not even necessarily a professional opportunity, but just even a scholarship opportunity.
Scholarship
opportunity. 10%. So it's something.
Yeah. And especially in some contexts, that education is going to change a whole community. One guy getting a Stanford education could change a whole community back here. So I think, I get where a lot of kids come from. That dream of being like the superstars you idolize, being on TV, coming out in Arsenal's colors or Real Madrid. But I think there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
You can still be as successful by using football in a different way.
It's true. You've given us because we have to wrap up soon, but you've given us advice on, or you've given students advice on what they can do, and you've given insight into how the academy recruits, how they develop players. What would you now, if you were to talk to, let's say, coaches or other professionals in football, what advice would you give them if they want to reach heights that you have reached, or want to be associated with such a great academy?
I think the first thing I'd say is, with where modern football is going, I don't think you can be a one-trick pony, for lack of a better term. I think you need to have knowledge in a lot of different fields. You need to be, these days, coaches need to understand physical preparation of players, because you need to take those into account when planning training sessions. Coaches need to understand analysis. Analysts need to understand how coaches operate and how they prepare sessions, so that, the analysis can make a bit more sense to them. Strength and conditioning, sports science guys need to understand football from a technical and a tactical point of view. So you need to be a lot more holistic in your education. So if I had any advice for maybe coaches and people working in the sports industry in general, is just read more, watch videos about more things related to the sport itself, not just what it is you do. Learn about sports business, learn about the medical side. However basic it might be, learn a bit of what goes on into analysis. what goes on with the sports science side and everything. So make your knowledge base a bit wider. I think that would be my main point.
Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate the feedback, and for me it has been insightful, because Right to Dream is one of the most prestigious academies we have in Africa, which also begs the question as to why we don't have more of them. But I think we may have to save that for the next time we speak.
And we will a different conversation. Yeah, sure.
We'll speak again, because I also want to focus on, the side of knowing why those academies don't exist in other countries. What's missing in our development, in Kenya or in other countries within Africa, that doesn't, allow us to really create the kinds of players that we know that we can create. But that is a conversation for another day. For now, I want to just say to you, is there anything that, if you were in my position, you would ask yourself?
It's a tough one. Well, I don't know whether there's anything you'd want to ask me, but this is something I'd like to add.
Sure.
Especially for any young players who have big dreams of becoming a professional football player. I think it's always good to dream big. Don't ever let anyone tell you that your dreams are too big. Okay, stay away from people like those. You don't need that energy in your life. But that dream has to be followed up by a work ethic that matches that dream. You get, and you might not get to where you want to go, but if your work ethic matches your dream, you might find you end up with something more precious than what it is you're going for. Yeah. So if this is coming from, I was having a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago, and I told them that if they think that their time here at the academy, the only thing they've come out with is football knowledge, I think they're selling themselves short. Sport has the power to teach you a lot about life, a lot about yourself. And sometimes that knowledge is a lot more useful than just whatever it is you do on the field. So don't give up, but keep going after what it is you want to go after. Yeah, I think that would be my. I hope that makes sense. I don't know.
that was inspiration. I feel like I should go and continue playing. No, but seriously, I think you said some things that are very important for young players to understand, and even parents to understand, and the people who are involved in the development to understand, even coaches, because like you said, we tend to focus a lot on the technical and tactical side, or how well they can. At the end of the day, it's not only about that.
Yeah.
Again, I just want to say thank you to you, and thank you for your time. And us from here in Nairobi, we continue to wish you the best, because we also feel that the further you get, the further we get as well.
Oh, for sure, man. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. I think I always enjoy our conversations. As much as sometimes can run a bit long. But yeah, thanks for having me over, man. Anytime you wanna chat, just let me know.
A total pleasure. Thanks, JT.
Mm.
Have a good one.
Yeah, you too, man. Cheers.